was happy to be a science teacher. I just was obsessed with science. The problem was that I was working in a school, had students that had emotional disturbances. They were classified with emotional disturbances. I had ended up in that school because they're like, come work in our school and we'll give you a master's degree. And I was like, great. But I was risking my life for it on so many levels. They were threatening my life and things. My health was declining very rapidly. And I was so young, 21 years old, 22 years old. And I should have been at the peak of my health, right? Like I should have been super fine, but mentally and physically just declining too fast. And I got scared and I was like, this can't be, like, I can't keep doing this. And so I said, you know what, when I slowed everything down and I started doing this meditation, it was like very obvious that I was getting very direct information about what would happen in the future, about what was happening in other people's bodies.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson, and today we're joined once again by Amy Stark, master healer and the host of the Stark Transformation Show. Amy is the author of Bridging the Divide, a powerful path to personal transformation by healing the mind, body, and spirit. The book is a blueprint for deep healing and awakening, offering readers a powerful integration of scientific insight and spiritual truth. In today's conversation, we discuss a few of the topics from Bridging the Divide. Amy shares the importance of releasing emotion, living in presence, and the healing power of nature. Amy teaches us some of the nervous system hacks that she's included in the book, which can really foster healing. Amy, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited to have you back on. I'm also so excited to talk about your book, Bridging the Divide. But first, for those that may not have listened to episode 4 or haven't become familiar with your magic yet, I want you to share a little, because one of my favorite things about you professionally is this science-based human that does all this beautiful energy work. So how does a science teacher become an energy healer? And what do the rest of us get to learn from your journey that you share in the book?
Yeah. Well,
it's a big question.
The big question. Yeah. I mean, I was happy to be a science teacher for, the end of time. I just was obsessed with science. We were just talking about how I took double classes of science in high school. And, the problem was that I was working in a school that was had students that had emotional disturbances. They were classified with emotional disturbances, and I had ended up in that school because they're like, come work in our school and we'll give you a master's degree. And I was like, great, but I was risking my life for it.
Oh gosh.
On so many levels. I mean, they were threatening my life and things like that. But my health was declining very rapidly, and I was so young. I was 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old. And I should have been at the peak of my health, right? Like I should have been super fine, but mentally and physically, I was just declining too fast. And I got scared and I was like, this can't be, like, I can't keep doing this. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to take a vacation. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go on several trips. It was summertime. And I was like, after the summer, I'll know what I want to do because I'll have like relaxed enough. And it came time towards the end of the summer and I was like, shoot, what am I going to do? And I was like in the car and I was about to accept the invitation to go to a new school. It was after 4 years of teaching and I just like couldn't do it anymore. And I was sitting in a parked car doing the interview and I got rear-ended. And that was the wake up from the universe to be like, not again. Do not do this.
Yeah.
Like it will repeat itself. It'll be miserable. You're going to leave anyway. So I was grateful that actually that happened because it did set me off in a whole new timeline where I decided to get a different job. I started meditating in the morning. I started eating healthy, and it just sent me off in this new direction. So as I started meditating, all my gifts started opening up, which I had no clue I had. I was always kind of like energetically sensitive, and I knew things, but like I never talked about it with people. And then suddenly, when I slowed everything down and I started doing this meditation, it was like very obvious that I was getting very direct information about what would happen in the future, about what was happening in other people's bodies. And I didn't know what to do with it because I didn't know anybody who was studying it, or I had never heard about it. Like,
Right.
but the thing that I noticed that kept me going was the fact that I was getting better, like
Mhm.
mentally and physically, and drastically better. So that's when it caught my eye of like, there's got to be some sort of intersection here of, um, diving into the energy, slowing down the body,
Mhm.
knowing things. Like I was feeling what was happening in other people's bodies, like I said, and it was in real time that this was happening. So I was like, I got to find the science that backs this up. And that's why Bridging the Divide is called Bridging the Divide, because I bridge the divide between science and spirit, also like where you are to where you want to be, because these are the tools and techniques that I've learned over the years that work to, help you evolve into the greatest version of who you really want to be.
Which is amazing. And I think you represent that bridge. Like you are so energetically in touch, in tune, intuitive, and some would even say out there, right, from what other people have experienced.
Sure.
Yet anybody meeting you would never know, like you're grounded, you're normal, you're you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
which I love. I just I think that changes the conversation too
Mm-hmm.
about energy and spiritual work and um quantum physics, all the things, right? Because we know now that, I mean, they used to always know, then we questioned that all of
Yeah.
this woo woo, it is science.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that. I was joking with you before we hit record because when I first got the hardcover, I was like, oh my gosh, she has a lot to say. This is a little intimidating. This is,
A
a
lot.
really big book. And it's so easily digestible, and the way you have shared your journey and your knowledge and your tips and your exercises with people through the book. We were joking around, but it's also really true. Like you could use it almost like somebody would pull a card and
Mm-hmm.
just be like, what do I need today?
Mm-hmm.
And open the book. Oh, good. It was a different chapter this time. Um, so
Oh,
I will say for listeners out there, like A, get the book, but also B, don't be intimidated like I was for like a half a second, because when you see that it's all really bite size,
mm-hmm.
and so but we'll get to that. We're gonna
I just want to say something about that because I'm obsessed with finding the fastest way to transform your life. Like, so if the book had too much information, or it was too wordy, or it was too dense, or wasn't digestible, that wouldn't be helpful.
right,
So I was very, very
intentional.
intentional, deliberate about breaking it down easily. And that's actually something that a lot of people reflect back to me, is like, I'm really good at breaking down the hard stuff to make it easy and digestible. And that's like, what's the point of knowing this? If so that's why I put in, why do you need to know this? Why was this so important? How does this help other people, not just me? Because these are all universal things that help people to heal, to get better. And the proof is in the pudding. Like, I am 11 years younger on the inside. I have an immune system that is 14 years younger than what I am. These are all things that because I love to find the science to prove what I'm doing is right. But like, all of this has really come from me following my heart and listening to my intuition about what helps the body to heal. So I wanted to make sure that it was easy to digest.
Well, and the other piece that I really appreciate is the holistic approach, right? Like this
Mm-hmm.
is not just, I mean, there's a chapter on blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Because we are whole humans. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we're only focusing on energy and we're not taking care of the vessel, or
Right.
you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
so,
That's why it says it's a powerful path to personal transformation for the mind, body, and spirit.
yeah,
Healing the mind, body, and spirit. Because if you're too much in one area, the other areas are suffering. So this
right.
is how to like kind of incorporate all of them and see them as everything. Now, everything is energy, and energy base, which I explain in the book. But when we talk about energy of the body, we're really referring to the communication between the cells, or we're talking about like maybe the nervous system or the fascia, but we're also talking about how food has vibration, right? So, like when we eat something, we're gaining that energy, right? And then um, I talk about how we have to be careful of the environments that we're in and like what we're exposing our body to, because these all matter because it's energy is information for the body. And so,
Sure.
we are finding out more and more every single day that our body is so susceptible to the things that are around us.
Hmm.
And so we have to be very cognizant about what we're thinking, what we're eating, what we're exposing ourselves to, what environments we're putting ourselves in. And that's why I paint the picture, but I also share my personal journey so you can get those pieces of like, wow, like, okay, this is how it impacted Amy, this is how it's impacted other people, or just the moments of divine communion with the other side, or just like those divine moments need to be experienced by more than just myself. And so I wanted to share that because that is healing in of itself. So I've
Yes.
woven those stories throughout for that reason.
Yeah, which is amazing. And of course, I think I'm sure because it's part of my own personal journey, but like you have a chapter in there about the healing power of love,
Mm,
right? But like the science basis for it, right? Like it is that's what you do, and by science, it doesn't mean that nobody can understand it either.
right.
Um, but I love again the like you seem way too young to have so much wisdom, and I know you've shared it. It doesn't really all come from you.
Yeah.
It comes
It is
through
some of it.
you,
Yeah, it comes through
some
me
of
for
it.
sure. Yeah, but I started out at 26 years old, with this journey essentially. And I would even say before that, obviously, I was gravitating towards certain things. Like I took psychology classes because I was enthralled with the mind and, what causes us to behave the way we do. But I was the youngest person in so many conferences, and they would just look at me like, you idiot. And I'd be like, can we just get along and be friends? So for a long time, I was the youngest one in all these places. And now I'm finally at the age where everybody else probably was. So
Well, and now you are the one making the contribution. So
yeah,
it's
yeah. I was a sponge for 18 years. I just love looking at people transform their lives. I love doing it for myself. And why would I not share that with everybody in a way that was easily digestible and, you portable? I mean, I have my podcast, so that's great, and they can listen to those episodes. But this is a different format, a different way of consuming the information. And of course, it's much more logical, and a lot more studies are mentioned and things like that, scientific studies. So, and then there's exercises because I really do want to be like that coach. Like that is who I am, as somebody who's believes in you, who wants to empower you, wants to give you the not answers, but point you in the right direction to your own answers.
which is how
That's
you
what,
created your signature coaching approach.
yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I love, I love the coach approach
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. It just, we talked in the episode that we did way back when. It seems like yesterday, also seems like a really long time ago. And we focused a lot in that episode on EFT tapping. And there's so many other things in the book that I'm like, oh my gosh, we could go in a million different directions. But I want listeners to understand a little bit about like where, because releasing emotion is it sounds weird the way I worded that, a passion of yours, but you are
It
passionate
is. I am
about
very passionate. Yeah.
so I do want, and I do think, I think it's really overlooked, and I know it's essential for healing, optimizing, learning, all growing, all the things. Where does that passion come from? Because
Yeah.
that's kind of the root, like almost like your root of it.
Yeah.
And then you add all this, the science and the energy work and all the things, but it does kind of come down to that passion for releasing emotion.
Yeah. So I was chronically ill for 30 years. I mean, I was told I was going to be on asthma and allergy medicine for the rest of my life. And there came a point where I forgot to renew my asthma medicine. And I was out on a soccer field because I was still playing in my early 20s. And I almost had to call an ambulance because I forgot it. And then I got to thinking, like, what happens if I can't afford this? What happens if I don't have insurance? What happens if I forget to do this again and it's the last time I can, ever play a sport again? So I started thinking, like, and then somebody else happened to mention at the same time, is like, your body isn't deficient of those chemicals. So I was like, what is my body
Nobody
deficient
has a
in?
pharmaceutical deficiency.
Yeah, yeah. So all those things went, started running through my head. And like I said, the more that I dove into like calming down and working on my thinking, the happier I was becoming and the healthier I was becoming. So I at first, of course, when I started meditating, I was like, wow, my thoughts are really awful and they're very repetitive and very annoying and boring, really. And so I started to tackle those. I mean, it was either like, I'm not good enough, or it was like, I need to get this from the grocery store. It was like, that was it. It was just a constant on repeat. And I was like, wow, no wonder why we're not going anywhere. And we feel like we're spinning our wheels and like unhappy. So as soon as I started addressing that stuff, like little by little, I started noticing a huge difference. And then I obviously took many years of training and energy work and things like that. But it wasn't until I found emotional freedom technique that I was like, okay, this is something that transforms people very, very quickly. In the moment I see it, I'm like floored by it. And that's when I started to realize, okay, we need to be paying attention to the emotions way more than I ever thought. And here's the at that time when I was learning the EFT, a lot of people were coming to me and saying, Amy, I've done the expensive treatments, and I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've done the diets, I've taken the supplements, I have quit my job. I still am not well. Like, what do I do? And it wasn't until we addressed the emotions and the energy in the body that they started to get well, and quickly. So EFT came around the same time, and I started using that. And I'm like watching these people get better so fast. It was blowing my mind, as well as
Mhm.
myself, because I'm with them doing it.
Sure.
And so that was the moment where I was like, okay, from now on, we're doing the emotion work first, because if you don't calm down the nervous system, the body can't receive any of those other treatments, at least in the same way that they would if it was calm,
Sure. Yeah.
and most
I
likely can't receive it.
no, I love that you said that. I remember this is my blanket apology to my earlier coaching clients. Yeah, I always incorporated mindset work uh, into my coaching, but in the beginning I was very much like the diet, the this, the things. And we would get, and then it was like I was like creating a course one day and I'm like, wait a minute, this has to come first. This makes
Hmm.
everything else work exponentially better, faster, all the easier,
Hmm.
like, um,
Well, what's cool about it is that once you start tackling these, the trauma that you've had, the programming that you have, the past experiences that are still stored in your body that are keeping you feeling limited, as soon as you start addressing that, then you're able to make better choices for yourself. You're
sure,
able to show up differently, and that's why we need to focus on that first, because every other treatment is going to lose its effect,
right.
and just cause frustration, because you're
Yeah,
caught in this loop over and over and over again, day in, day out.
yeah. And it's an underlying theme, like whether listeners are aware or not, like everybody has stuck stuff. Everybody has trauma, big T, little t. I don't care what you call it. Everybody has limiting beliefs. If you haven't already been working on these things, they are part of what's going on with
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was laughing. I just was saying yesterday to one of the employees at the clinic, and she's younger, but it was. I've yet to work with anybody whose loop whose constant voice in their head is a nice voice, is an encouraging
Mm.
voice, is, you know what I mean? Like nobody has a cheerleader sitting on their shoulder all the time
Mm-hmm.
if they haven't already started really doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
All of those tapes are the things that are creating a negative impact.
Yeah.
And so for this young gal, and she's in her 20s, and I was like, hey, you're way ahead of the curve, because you don't need to just start thinking about this in 30 years when you're sick. Like, do it
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Unfortunately, especially women tend to feel like we're not enough.
Right.
And we will hear from other people that we are enough, but like we don't hear it in our
Internalize it.
we
Yeah.
don't internalize it, right? So that's where this repetitive self-talk causes this nervous system to be in overdrive, and then we forget about ourselves, or we put ourselves last, and then all of a sudden 20 years later you're like, what happened to my life? Like, I was living it for everybody else, and now I'm sick and
Right.
laying in bed, and now I'm a burden, and I never wanted to be a burden to other people. So that's why we got to do this inner work, so that we can just stop that and then live from the moment where we are, where we do hear when our son says, oh, this is the best meal I've ever had, or thank you so much for always getting these things ready for me, I really appreciate that. Like, I actually saw from Spirit, they showed me that when people say these nice things to us, they're like little gifts, energetic gifts that we get. And a lot of times a perfectionist would come in,
Yep.
and there would be all these little gifts around them that they had not opened up, because they were all the people who were thanking them. And I would just say, I want you every morning just to envision opening up those gifts, and because the energy is still stored there. So you may not remember exactly what it is, but imagine opening up a box and then taking that lid off and feeling the energy of appreciation coming in towards you. That is so healing. And if you're wanting to rewrite your programming, if you're wanting to heal, that's a great way to start.
Amazing. We can stop now. That was powerful. That was
It
so
was pretty
cute.
mind-blowing when I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the visual. And again, this is again one of the things that I think is so extra magical about you, is that you put you give us these exercises and bites in ways that no matter where life has taken somebody, when they're showing up today to listen to this, who can't visualize little gifts around us, and that, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to necessarily experience energy the way you do, and be, with that same level of awareness in order to work on stuff. And that's one of the beautiful gifts of the book, is that you
Mm-hmm.
give these really, like, exercises that anybody can understand. Like, you just make it so digestible, but also we can all do that. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a beautiful thing. Like, I know the word appreciation is what jumped out at me. That feeling of appreciation, that
Mm-hmm.
I definitely fit that category of, my self-talk would be like, oh, well, they don't know, or they didn't mean it, or whatever, or the stories. And so that is like, that alone, just to wake up every morning and do that would change a life for
Mm-hmm.
real.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It's
Wow.
really not that hard to get well. I mean, a lot of people would be angry with me for saying that, but I can tell you with certainty that if you can calm down the nervous system in the various ways, so like I do talk about obviously what I call the low hanging fruit, which is actually like eating the food that you eat is the low hanging fruit. It's easy to
Right.
change those things. It's easy to take a walk if you can, like obviously if you're physically able to.
Right.
But these are things that you can do. You can start to forgive people. Like, that's a huge thing that you can do to calm your
Including
nervous system and your
yourself.
body. Yeah. So the harder things are working on your mindset, your trauma, and things like that. So that's where I want to help people and support people whenever I can, because rewriting the nervous system and the way that you see the world is everything. When you think that the world is out to get you, or that you're not enough, like, you just shrink, or you run away from opportunities. But if you can change how you interact with the world, it's going to be so much more full of joy, and you're going to appreciate life so much more, and you're going to be more present and in the moment. Because think about it, when you're thinking I'm not good enough, you're not in the
Missing.
moment. you're
Yeah.
missing everything, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so interesting how time will go by so fast, especially when you're a mother, like because you're thinking of all the things. But how many times do we stop and say, you know what? I want to remember, like my son just turned 11. Like I want to remember his face in this moment. Like
Yeah.
we forget that,
Mm.
the
Yeah.
beauty of that. Or
Yeah.
thinking,
Well,
because he was going on a camping trip and I'm like, okay, he needs this, that, and the other thing. It's
right.
like,
The logistics and the perfectionism and the especially as, as a mom, right? You want to do the best you can do within, even if you don't have a handbook. Right? And
right,
so
right, right.
focusing on well, if you're like I used to be, it wasn't even the what is wrong, is the potential of what could go wrong, what might go
Mm,
wrong, what
right.
and that you just pulled your energy away from
Yeah, so much
appreciating that
energy
beautiful
goes to
moment.
all those things.
Yeah.
Buddha said worrying is wasted creative energy because
Yeah.
you could be creating so much more with that energy that's being wasted on all the
Yeah.
things that usually never happen.
Right.
And just being the kind of parent that can stop and say, you know what, I'm gonna pause here and I'm gonna really be fully present and listen to what he has to say, or I'm gonna take in his face, at this
What a
moment.
gift for him though to grow up with that experience of that being the norm, right? In the house
Yeah.
that he gets to grow up in, of especially I feel like, I'm older than you, and if I look at how he's growing up versus how we grew up, how, it's a different world. Like it
Mm-hmm.
really is. There is a lot, I think, even more with social media and all the things that can take you out of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a terrible picture taker. Like when we go away and we travel, my daughter's always like, send me pictures and we'll like take because we're in the moment. I'm not behind the camera. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying don't take a picture. There is a balance. I have it. I'm so in the moment that I'm like, oh wow, we were just gone a week and we never took a picture
Right, 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 right. Yeah.
because it was a great trip.
Well, they
Um,
say that you remember it better when you don't take a picture. Isn't that interesting?
it is interesting. It is, and I don't know if is it because we fill in the blanks when we do take. I don't know if we change the story or
Or we're just out of the moment.
yeah.
When we take a picture, we're thinking of a future time when we're going to look at it rather than being in the present
Uh,
moment.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but um, that I think. And again, so do you have an exercise related to present? Like, how can we learn to
Uh,
catch the?
yeah, so those are all, so a lot of my exercises around metacognition. So it's learning to observe your thoughts. So, um, I am obviously like hyper aware of my thoughts now. I know when I'm taking myself out of the moment. And sometimes it's okay to take yourself out of the moment. Sometimes we need a
Sure.
break. But being aware of when you're doing that is really key. So, like, because you don't want to wake up 20 years later and being like, what the hell?
I
Where am
missed
I?
it.
What? Yeah, I
Yeah.
missed it. What was the point of all that? So obviously that I want people to not only be aware of their thoughts, but also to recognize the magic that's all around them. Because when we stop and we slow down, that's when we can see synchronicities. That's when we can start to see the beauty that is around us, the love that we share with others. Because that's why we're here. We're here to experience the incredible growth that happens from a leaf, in a week, and just witness that every year. Or we're here to see our children grow or other people's children grow and reflect on where we are in our lives. Like we're not meant to constantly be running around and thinking about what's next. We're there to connect and enjoy. And I think a lot of people think that I'm magical and that I have all these experiences that are pretty cool, and they are. I mean, I'm not going to lie, but we all have
Just
our
like
own.
I mean, I am magical, but I'm just saying we all are.
I've cultivated the magic. I mean,
Right.
I slow things down. I recognize when there is magic present. I see it because I can slow down in the moment and because I've trained in that. But everybody else can also do that too. Like we can
I was
also
going to
just take a
say
deep breath and just make ourselves present.
the beauty of that is that there we can all do. We don't have to devote your life to this like you have.
Right.
right? And this is your life's work and this is your gift to the rest of us. But we can take that gift and use it in our own lives. And like you said, we can all learn to slow down. We can all learn to be in the moment. We can all learn that gift of not missing, you call it magic, call it beauty, call it love, this experience that we are meant to have on this planet.
Yeah. Think about how when we leave our house, let's say we go for a walk, and people already have figured out their route, right? That how they're getting back home. But what if you were to just start walking and then listening to which way you wanted to go, or if you wanted to stop and smell some flowers, or I don't know if you've seen these videos online of like people standing next to trees and then talking to the trees, and the trees are like touching them. Like I don't, have you seen this?
I have not.
Okay, so like they're basically they stop to like where there's branches that are hanging down and
Uh-huh.
they will be like, "Okay, you can touch me." And the tree will
We'll
move
move.
closer. Now, obviously, I'm not seeing the entire thing and maybe people are making this up, but the energy of trees and the energy of you, there is a connection with nature that we have and we are drawn to certain places and experiences and one of my favorite things to do is just to go out without an agenda and just see where the day takes me. Or sometimes I even do vacations that
Like,
way. Like
what adult does that?
mhm.
You. But I
Yeah.
mean,
But
what a gift.
I've trained myself because I know that that's where the magic is. Like
Right. It's
I
always
my
in the
heart,
unexpected. You can't plan it.
yeah, my heart will be drawn to a certain location. Like if we end up in a city that I haven't been in, obviously we want to make sure that we're safe. So I'm not saying anything like that.
It's just
But uh,
right.
but when you step out and you're like, where do I feel like going? Oh, I feel like going right. I'm going to go right. And then I'm going to walk for a little bit and then I feel like going left. And then all of a sudden you find this amazing coffee shop and you run into a person, and you have the amazing conversation.
Right.
You're just way more present. It's just a different experience than if you're like, I'm going this way and I'm going there. It's like,
Well, and I do think, I mean, even just logically, like if you've got the agenda, I'm not saying don't ever set a goal or do anything productive, but if you are, I like the kind of the vacation analogy or but even like you said on a walk, but then you aren't focused on the present because you're focused on the whatever that place you're going or the you know what I mean, and you do miss the just I do think so much of it too, at least for me, my experience is the nature piece, right? Like we're about to plant 300 trees
oh,
on our
wow.
property because we're insane. They're little right now, but they're going to grow really big, um, fast. Like we got these, like anyway. But we were sitting on the porch this past week, listening to, and of course, with it being springtime, and we had planted some trees kind of closer to the house a few years ago, and what I noticed was immediately more birds, right? Just
Hmm.
more joyful bird noises like we every day I've got birds, that drink out. I don't know how they know it's there. Have a water bowl on the back deck too for the dogs for when they're outside, and the birds know it's there. They think
Mm-hmm.
it's there for them, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And we were talking and we were listening to the birds and we were like, oh my gosh, I'm almost a little like, are we gonna have too many birds when we plant more trees? We don't have very many trees now, but it is that wonder, the magic. Like for me, definitely being in nature of any sort. It doesn't matter if it's like mountains, ocean. You name some kind of nature, and it's awe-inspiring.
Well,
If
and healing.
Yeah.
Very, very healing. So the birds that you were listening to, I actually talk about this in my chapter called Nature's Remedies. And just I actually have some from Amazon down in the basement, uh, bird sounds or water, running water. So both of those are
Mhm.
very good at lowering cortisol levels because that's how
Oh,
we evolve. So it's a way to hack our nervous system and our body to help it to heal. But think about when you go to the beach, you know, you're in the sunshine, you have the ocean spray that has the negative ions that are coming off, you have the grounding that's coming from the sand,
Yeah.
so, you know, from touching the sand, touching the earth, and then you have the waves that are actually training your brain to be in a more meditative state. So it's like
Hmm.
no wonder why you know nature is
It's
so
healing.
healing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's forest bathing, which is when you walk through the forest. One of my
I
favorite.
I
I
look
love.
forward to when a physician in the United States can write a prescription for, I mean, we shouldn't need one, but
But yeah.
in Japan, they will hand you a prescription, go forest
Hmm.
bathe,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I learned about forest bathing when I went, so I started running through the forest like area. There was a path. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna turn my hands up towards the end of the run when I'm like really tired. And I turned my hands up to receive the energy from the trees, and
Mhm.
it was fantastic. Like I could feel the energy coming into my body and filling my body with energy at the end of a run. Like it works. This stuff works. I
Right.
mean, they're I was going to put this in my book too, and I'm not sure if I ever made it in because there's all these thoughts and all these things that I've learned, but even the smell of the forest actually helps
Yes.
to heal certain things that start with a C in the body that can destroy
Hmm.
the body. So,
Interesting. And I don't know, our sense of smell and our memory center is so strong too. One of my favorite hikes that's not far from my house is my favorite hike because you smell the pine trees on the trail.
mhm.
And it's just, and maybe it's the change of, I live in a beautiful place, but I live on flat farmland too. But there is something about, for me, that smell
Yeah.
that
Well, we're so
is,
used
it's
to that. We're both,
childhood
yeah,
too.
we're both from New Jersey. So, you know,
Yeah.
it rained a lot and we were used to
Yeah.
that very potent,
Hmm.
pungent smell of nature.
Yeah.
And you don't get it out here as much because of the lack of rain. But one of the things that I wanted to say is if anybody's ever going through anxiety or feeling ungrounded or wanting to feel more like themselves, one of the things I like to do is actually just imagine smelling dirt. Like if you can do that, your whole nervous system resets. And actually, did you get to the point in the book where I talk about all the different hacks that I use for
Well,
resetting the nervous system?
it's funny because that was the one, I always say, oh, we end up where we end up. But I wanted to ask you to share some of the nervous system hacks, which I know you just did with the bird sounds and the
Yeah.
water.
I'm all
Uh,
about calming the
yeah.
nervous system. So, because I truly believe that if you can do that, you're going to heal. That the body has an innate wisdom, and you will naturally gravitate towards things that are healthier for you, and people who are healthier, and situations that are healthier. And you're such a find the information and answers that you need. So, nervous system hacks is my favorite. So yes, the birds, the walking in nature, the grounding, the smelling of dirt, but also have you tried the one where you cover your eye and you look up and it,
I haven't.
oh,
Walk us
do it
through
right
it.
now. Yeah.
Walk us through it.
Yeah. Oh, so cover your one eye
Uh-huh.
and keep the other eye open and look up and you'll feel it drain. It might take longer for you. For me it's very quick cuz I'm very
No,
energetic
I
and
can feel that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so and if it didn't work for you, try the opposite eye and look up and you'll feel it the energy drain from the top of your head down your spine.
It's faster on that side, or
Yeah.
maybe because it was my second side, I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good one. What's another one? Oh, the steeple. So this was hard trying to write this in the book. Like I had some beta readers and they were like, Amy, for the life of me, I cannot figure out what you're talking about here. So she helped me to figure out how like so you want to interlace your fingers
Mhm.
and squeeze your knuckles together. And this is proprioception. And so it causes you to reset in the moment. See, I'm very, very sensitive. I just had the reset there. I can
Uh-huh.
tell
I can
if you were
feel
to
it.
do it, I can feel you can feel it
You
too. Are
can,
you doing
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's a nice easy
That's
one.
funny though, because when you said steeple, like immediately, like, did you just go back to childhood
Yes,
with
yes.
the, yeah.
I'm like, please. Anyway, I was like, you know, when you did the steeple thing, I'm like, okay. So yeah.
The
So
only
just,
people.
just,
Yeah.
just uh, interlace your knuckles and squeeze. That's a super easy one. And like, these are things that if you're a mom on the go or you're a dad that's really busy and you just want to reset in the moment, these are things you can do. Tapping obviously is something that is very good at resetting your nervous system. But if you don't want to look like weird because you're tapping on the top of your head or on your face or something like that, these are alternatives.
Well, I mean, you didn't, like I could do like the squeezing my knuckles on camera in a
I didn't even know
meeting,
you were
in a
doing it.
call.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I love things that you can do that other people don't know you're doing
yeah, yeah.
too. Like I love all of it, you know that about me, but I really I think, like breathing, there's certain things that if we just did a little more of it, and I always say, because I'll have clients that'll be like, oh, yeah, well, I do that in the moment. And I'm like, you can't because it's not in your toolbox yet. So I don't believe you. Like, we need to practice these
Oh,
things.
for sure. Yeah. And like I
But
said, it goes really fast for me because I clear my energy all the time.
yeah.
So for somebody else, it might take a little bit longer, but you'll see how your energy is running a lot more faster and smoother, which is a good sign that you're getting healthier, that your body is functioning properly. The one that I want to share that's super easy is just turning your head to the left. So you want to turn your head to the left and wait for it to reset. Go ahead.
I'm laughing because I have just a congenital fusion in my neck, which I didn't know until about 4 years ago. I've always had really bad range of motion in my neck, and
Hmm.
now I know why. It's because I was made that way. That's why I was giggling, because turning to the left people will be like, "Well, you're not really turning," but that's as far as I go.
I would be curious to see. There you go. You got yeah.
Oh,
See?
wow.
Isn't that
That's
cool?
wild. And again, for people listening, like I too, not to the degree that Amy does, but I have worked on all of, energy clearing and all of these similar techniques for the past at least 7, 8 years. So somebody may be like, wow, that was really fast, or faster than me, but it's like wherever you are is where you start.
Mm-hmm.
And then it almost I hate to use the word, it has such a negative connotation, but it becomes addictive or
Mm-hmm.
fueling. But because you
It's
don't
a easy fueling.
want to feel blocked once you feel unstuck, like,
Yeah.
and so like you said, like you're clearing stuff all the time, but here's the reality: we're never done, we're
Mm-hmm.
always getting the inputs. Like they need to get cleared one way or
Mm-hmm.
another, and I
Yeah.
love that it doesn't need to be like I'm gonna go be in a cave for 20 days, see you later.
Yeah, no. In fact,
Yeah.
I talk about that in my book. I once listened to a lady who we both probably know talk about how she got her gifts because she went to a mountaintop and she meditated for whatever it was, 5 days or something like that. And she said that that's what everybody has to do. And I was like, that's bullshit. Excuse my language. I was like, because I sat on a couch in
There's
Brooklyn with a coffee cup and
right.
all my gifts opened up and I had no clue what I was doing. I had never meditated in my life before. And I just was like, I'm just going to sit here and close my eyes and I'm going to sit with my legs crossed. Like it was very basic and it was highly transformative. So I believe that we all have.
Even when you're making a shopping list, that was the other thing I wanted to circle back and highlight of, like because I was one of those people, and maybe that's why I like to talk about it. But I know I meet a lot of people that say the same thing. I'm a bad meditator,
Hmm,
right? Because they think it's this like you sit down and you get that, the first
right.
time you sit and no, it's an
No.
exercise. That's the
Right.
whole point is,
Right, right,
yeah,
right. So that's also I talk about that in the book, how meditation is conceived as like this thing of no thoughts, but it's really it's not the absence of thoughts, it's the
right,
awareness of thoughts and
right.
learning. I mean, I would imagine myself when I would talk about, like, in my head about the grocery shopping, I'd be like, nope, not today. And I would imagine
Uh-huh.
myself picking up that thought and putting it aside. And then when the next one would arise, I would pick that up and put it aside. And I would say, nope, we're just going to be here and feel what we're feeling and process whatever's coming up. But if it was about grocery shopping, I'd just be like, no, we're not doing that. That's not important
Right.
right now.
And it's like, okay. And you reset. Like that's
Hmm.
part of the exercise is notice,
Yeah.
shift, you know,
Right.
and it's like once again, then as you learn and you go down the rabbit hole and it's like, oh, our brain, you do not actually want to experience a state where you have no thoughts.
Yeah.
That's not called life. Like that's not good.
No, no,
Yeah.
no.
It's
And
not how we're made.
gratitude was one of my favorite things, which is why I put a chapter about it. Because one of it's very healing. It obviously puts you in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is where we can rest, digest, and heal. But it makes us the receiver of the things that we really want. And it. So I did this exercise, and I talk about it in the book, where every time I touched something in my pocket, which was like a rock, I said what I was grateful for, and I had to do it in the moment, and that helped me to get to master my thoughts as well, just like meditation, so that I was out and about, because we're not going to like abandon all our things and go to a mountaintop and try to master our thoughts. Like the mastering and enlightenment, if you will, in my opinion, is when we can be here and be fully present and share what
Yeah.
we came here to share. Like that's enlightenment to me. So learning these little techniques to shift in the moment is absolutely necessary, and they're not that hard. Like if you touch a rock in your pocket and you say what you're grateful for while you're paying for something, that is
Yeah.
training for your brain, but also changing your energy and also making you more of a receiver to those around you. It just
Well,
changes everything.
and more of a gift to those around you too, because when you're in that energy and you're interacting with the world, you are positively impacting the world
Right.
too.
Well, so when we do these micro shifts where we
Hmm.
start being really intentional about our thoughts, we create a lens in which we see the world, which then creates a whole new way in which we interact with the world, but also how our body feels within the world. And that's when we become like these powerful creators, because we
Yeah.
have now really engineered our brain to create the things and find the things that we want. Like probably anybody out there who's bought a new car has thought, okay, I want a new white car, or I want that car, or whatever. And then all of a sudden they see them everywhere. It's because your brain tagged it as important. So if you tag
Right.
gratitude as important, I want to see how grateful I can be, or all the things that are being given to me. Or me and a bunch of my friends, we say, this is going to be the best day ever. So in our
Yeah.
minds, we're looking for how this is the best day ever. We're not
Right.
looking for how the day sucked, because that's not
Yeah.
helpful, right? We might have to revisit that later, but we are looking
Right.
for how this day is awesome. And
Yeah.
even if it's
Well,
just little,
it's such an old saying, but where attention goes, energy flows.
yes.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, it doesn't mean that, Amy doesn't ever have to deal with difficult things. Like
Yeah, I absolutely
it's
do.
not that kind of magic.
Yeah.
Um, but, it's where you're focusing on. It is one of the reasons I love simple gratitude exercises as well. And it's always really funny because people, the first knee-jerk reaction is for like a client when we first start talking about using gratitude as an exercise.
Yeah.
I am a grateful person. I'm like, I am not, I have no doubt. I am not judging whether you are a grateful person. That is different than doing the exercises
Yeah.
because again, that's where the growth happens. And
Well, and when you're interacting with somebody who's very sick, they do
yeah,
find it hard to find what they're grateful
yeah,
for, which is one, sad, but also two, the reason why they have to do it so badly. Because if they're
right.
gonna pull themselves out, it's gonna be through these opportunities where they can take the smallest thing and blow it up and make it the biggest thing of their
Right.
day, where they're grateful, and then their attention will go there and find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it really does like unlock a door
Yeah.
to their healing when they do this.
Yeah.
So every single thing I put in the book is because it has massively impacted me. It has massively helped other people to heal. And that's, even though it is 550 pages and it may seem dense, it is easy to read because
It is.
it's a journey.
And
Uh,
I was joking, but not joking also for I know, there's amazing value to read it from page one all the way through. But if that does feel daunting and anybody is at all energetically inclined, because the way you've written it, the chapters are so digestible, I do think there is something really fun in the like, what do I need today? Or where do I
yeah.
need to start? And just
Mm-hmm.
open and see where the universe thinks you need to start.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
I think, well, you have to be open to buy the book, right? So you're already cracked open a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's so we could talk for hours and hours and hours. There's so much value in the book, and you already gave us so many exercises, but by now I do always ask before we wrap up for one step listeners can take starting today. I'll say my one step, get the book, go get Bridging the Divide and
Okay.
play with it, even if you're not ready
Yeah.
to really dive in.
Yeah.
But what would your one step
Even if
be?
they just read the personal stories where I talk about my connection with spirit, because there's a lot of awe that they'll experience. And in that awe, it releases oxytocin, which causes them to heal as well. So, but my one step, I would say, I think that people don't look enough at their progress. I have an exercise in there where I have us sit down with our younger self and have coffee, mentally.
Uh-huh.
You could just either have coffee or just imagine yourself having coffee. It's just a very easy date with your younger self and look at what that younger person was going through and think about where they wanted to be. And likely a lot of that is what you already have. And so sitting in that gratitude of like, wow, we made it. I really think that's really super healing. And I don't think that we do that enough where we're like, wow, I have all the things that I once prayed for or worked for or
Amazing.
wanted. So,
Yeah. Or sometimes the things that are really different, it's like, oh, this is what I thought I wanted, and now I have
right.
something so much better, like that I
Mm-hmm.
could not have foreseen.
Right. Or that, there's a lot of moments that are really hard. And we
Mhm.
could be like, wow, I can't believe I went through those moments. And look at me now. I am
Yeah.
over here. And I'm really grateful for those moments because they forced me in a new direction. Like at 16 years old, I broke my back. I got through that and that gave me a lot of strength mentally and also
Mhm.
then eventually physically. But there's moments there that happen in our lives that crush us, but
Yeah.
then they're fertile ground for us and our huge transformation that can come from it. So honoring those moments and looking back as if you were having coffee with yourself, because there's no ego there. There's no
Right.
we should be somewhere else. It's just like this is what it is. We both know we've been here
Right.
together doing this,
Right. Who am I gonna
right?
fool?
Like, yeah, who
Yeah.
am I fooling? Like, you know what I mean? So it allows the defenses to come down and you can really have a nice little conversation and a thought process and then think, where do you want to be in 20 years? And if you were to come back 20 years and talk to the person that you are now.
Yeah. So, because so much wisdom is already there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so good. Amy, I am so appreciative for the work that you share with the world, for the fact that I get to spend time with you.
I
Yeah,
love spending time with you too.
personally. And just so excited that the birth, I know you say you booked the birth, you birthed the book and the book birthed you.
Yes.
But we're
Yeah.
so glad that it's out in the world now in a way that we can all
Bridging the
learn
divide.
from it, bridging the divide.
By Amy Stark.
But
There's another longer title, a powerful path to personal transformation by healing the mind, body, and spirit.
yes,
But yeah,
thank you.
just type
And
in
that, and
"Bridging
all
the
of that
Divide" by
is
Amy Stark
in
on
the
Amazon.
that is true. Amy Stark is all you need too,
Yeah,
but the bridging the divide, because that is your gift to us,
yeah,
is bridging the divide. So Thank you so very. And other than the book, where's the best place to find you if people are like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, sure. Starktransformation.com. I have a newsletter that goes out only once a week, and I just tell you what I'm up to, things I've learned, things I'm thinking about, things I'm trying. And then I have social media, so Stark Transformation on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
For everyone listening on the go, remember you can get the transcripts and show notes by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Go get Bridging the Divide. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.